Yes. So, interesting because Hayek was asked the same question when he was in Latin America, and I think it was in the late 70s. And why is Latin America such a failure when you compare it to the United States, Canada, North America, basically? And he said, and I think this is a fundamental reason why it's so hard to achieve prosperity in our region. He said that we had imported the French tradition of liberalism, which is a rationalistic tradition which claims that government and centrally planned agent can solve all our problems. Whereas the Americans had imported the Anglo-Saxon tradition of freedom, and therefore you had a more market-friendlier or individual liberty-friendlier social order. And I think that's one of the main reasons that explains everything that Gonzalo was just describing. I actually wrote a paper about this some years ago, but there is an extra or another element. Our culture is mostly a Catholic culture. And within this Catholic framework, the Jesuits had a huge impact in everything in Latin America, on all institutions and the way we think, basically. And Jesuit worldview is basically completely opposed to individual freedom and opposed to capitalism and free markets. Why? Because in their view, you need to have community that where the members are part of a whole, and if you allow individual freedom, then the corpus of Christ, which is understood as this community, right, becomes corrupted. You are not experiencing the same that all of the members are experiencing, and so you become rich and you don't care about the rest, and there is no solidarity. And this worldview has been extremely influential in the history of Latin America, in politics, in law, in economics, and everything. And you see it in Pope Francis. Pope Francis is a Jesuit, he is Argentinian, and he claims that the problems of Latin America are caused by economic liberalism. And he says that, capitalism is, a poor system, that it has to be replaced, and he is a Peronist. And it reflects, I think his opinions reflect largely what cultural Latin America is all about. And so it's not like he's Pope or an Argentinian guy who thinks that, but it's also what large sectors of Latin America, even conservatives, think about the market. And this is the reason why I think we are doomed to fail. Basically a colossal increase in corporate tax, with no precedent in the country's history. It destroyed investment. Also dramatically damaging the voucher system that we had in education, public education. Labor laws that made the labor market more rigid and increased the cost of hiring people and firing people and so on. So when she came to power in 2014, she promised to get rid of neoliberalism. This is what I'm trying to explain. Latin American culture is not compatible with the ideals of the modern world. Not compatible with the ideals of the modern world, which is basically the idea of individualism. When you take a look at the Atlas ranking of economic mentality, Chile is one of the lowest in the world pro-capitalism. And so I actually predicted this was going to happen. I wrote books, and I became to be known like a sort of Nostradamus because I predicted all of this. And if people want to understand how ideology, because in the end it's not the economic policies, it's the ideology that drives the economic policy. And how that destroyed Chile, because Chile has been destroyed already, this is a fact. For 10 years we have grown only 0.6% per capita. It's game over for Chile. And I wrote a paper that was published by Cato Journal called The Fall of Chile. And I explain how the mentality of redistributionism, egalitarianism, led to economic reforms that in the end destroyed the foundations of prosperity. But because the left controlled the narrative in the country, then instead of blaming the same wrong ideas and policies, people doubled down on that. And then more reforms came. and then you had this vicious circle in which we destroyed the country. Now there is some reaction, but I don't think we are going to recover it for many, many years or maybe decades. And that's why I'm so skeptical, because when you have countries that make the necessary reforms to prosper in Latin America, it can work for 1-2 decades, and then they destroy them again. It's what happened with us in 1975. When the Fraser Institute started publishing the Economic Freedom Index, Venezuela was number 13 in the world. 13. Chile, until recently, was number 13. We are now number 30. And if you take a look at the evolution of Venezuela, it was not like they were number 13 and then Chavez came and destroyed everything. But they were falling. And when Chavez came to power, it was like 80-something already. And then Chavez ended up destroying everything in Maduro. And so that is the challenge that we face. We have to change structurally our mentality, our culture, so that people embrace the ideals of the free market and individual liberty, human flourishing. Otherwise, we can have good reforms, but then another government will come and will destroy them, and then we will go back to the same place. I'm a personal friend of Javier Milei. I've known him for a long time. Actually, it's funny because when he started to become famous, people were saying that Javier Milei was the Axel Kaiser of Argentina, and now they are asking me if I'm the Javier Milei of Chile. So. He presented actually my book, The Street Economist in Argentina. It became very influential in the free market movement there. And first of all, he has achieved something that is heroic, which is to change in a country like Argentina with the Peronist culture, which is statist and collectivist like no other country in the world probably. Structurally, he changed public opinion. It means that the new generations that follow him are not going to be Peronist. They are going to be pro-market, libertarians, classical liberals, and that changed forever, in my opinion. And that had never happened before in the history of Argentina, or probably in the history of Latin America. So he achieved something extraordinary. Some of us helped, but he's the main figure there. Now, compared to Bolsonaro, Trump, he's different. He's basically someone who truly believes in the institutions. He would never mess with the institutions. He is a Democrat. He believes in liberal democracy or classical liberal democracy, and he is someone who has shown also a pragmatism. Now that he didn't win in the first round, he has come together with the former rivals from Juntos por el Cambio, which was the Patricia Bullrich, the other center-right wing candidate that was running, and he has said that I'm starting from a clean slate, so let's come all together. And this is something that most people I used to talk with were saying, no, he's never going to do that because he's insane. He's not insane. I know him. He's extremely smart and pragmatic, and also if he has to be, but he's also principle driven. He's not going to just be a president that doesn't do anything and like Macri and just try to get through the 4 years. He actually can't afford to do that because they are on the verge of hyperinflation now in Argentina. So I think people are misjudging him, and there is a reaction from the media against him because he is going to be, if he wins, the first libertarian candidate ever to win a presidential election in modern times in the Western world. And so journalists don't really like pro-capitalist, hardcore pro-capitalist. Compared to him, Ronald Reagan is like Karl Marx. Yeah, so it's really impressive that he has this chance of winning, and I would say that he will have a good ride as a president if he wins. So Argentina has over $200 billion in cash under the mattress. The Argentinian economy is already dollarized. I mean, everyone who can afford to buy dollars has dollars. You buy properties, you buy it in dollars, in cash. You bring the whole package
like
of
Venezuela as well, isn't it? Like an underground.
It's happening the same thing because hyperinflation completely destroyed the Bolivar in Venezuela, and in Argentina it's on the verge of hyperinflation, and everyone thinks in terms of dollars. When you go and you buy something at the store, even the guy who has an average salary is thinking, how many dollars are this? I mean, how much money is this in dollars? Because inflation is so dramatic that you don't have prices more or less stable prices anymore. And so this is the first thing. So you could just do it like El Salvador did it with saying the dollar is from now on legal tender, and that would change a lot because dollar will start circulating and you will have an organic process of replacement of the currency. But then you have the problem of the debt of the central bank and the public debt, and the big question is how you get the dollars you need in order to pay off these debts and to dollarize bank deposits and that. And that's the main challenge. But there are some ideas that they already have, and I know having conversations with other important institutions in the US and other parts of the world to get this done. And if they have the political support of their partners from Juntos por el Cambio, that would make a big difference. And also if there is political support from Congress, because I think they will need laws in order to make all of this happen. But, they don't have a choice. It's not like, oh no, we are going to stay with the peso. Dollarization, in my view, is going to come to Argentina in a disordered way, or, like in an institutionalized way, because people don't want the peso anymore. When I went to Argentina, so that your viewers know have a sense of the proportion of the problem. 2015-16, it was like 15 peso per dollar. Now it's over 1,000 pesos per dollar. This is spiraling out of control, and it's really going to be much worse in a year from now. So I don't think they have a lot of time. I think they will have 3-4 months in order to announce, because you in Argentina, you are voted into office in order to control inflation. That was Menem, for instance, and in many cases before him. If they don't do it, if they don't start from day one trying to solve the problem with aggressive reforms, then they will lose their honeymoon political capital. So I wrote this book. It's a very basic introduction to economics. It was published first in Chile, and we sold over 40,000 copies in a year. It was number one for over a year, and it's still being sold in many bookstores and countries. 7 languages already. Yeah. And the content is basically, I try to explain price theory, capital theory, free trade theory, entrepreneurship, and things like that in a few pages with no math, no graphs, no footnotes, in a very simple language. And I think that has been the key to the success, unprecedented, of the book. Well, I started with a very basic lesson that we have forgotten in the West, all over the West, which is that in order to live, you have to work. You have to earn something, and that there are 2 ways of living. You work from your own work, or you live out of the work of others. And so you expect the government to take away from others to give it to you. So I start with that very simple lesson, and then I go down and I explain, for instance, what prices are. That prices enable to transmit information in a market economy. I use very simple examples, right? And so that people can understand. This is Hayekian insight into price theory, and that you shouldn't fix prices, you shouldn't mess with prices, because you alter the signals that allow to structure the whole economy, and then you end up harming the poor people and people with no opportunities even more. Then I explain, for instance, why free trade is so important, and I also use very simple examples, like how you can profit from free trade by exchanging what you produce as a, let's say, Latin American country with the technology that Britain is capable of producing. So in the end, what we do with free trade is to, as Chile or Argentina or whatever, or any other country, is to profit from the brain power that you can find in London, for instance. Like you have great engineers, they invent things, and we can import these things. It's as if they were living in our own country, only we produce wine or wheat or whatever, we send it here, and then that's the way that we all prosper. And now we are going back to protectionist policies, not only in Latin America, which is typical for us, but also you're seeing at the level of European Union, the United States. I understand that there is a Cold War 2.0 context here with China, and that we shouldn't forget how important free trade is for our economies. And things like capital. What is capital? We tend to demonize capital. And I explain that capital is savings and ingenuity, applied ingenuity, basically. That if you have a computer or you have a machine, whatever, that's capital. Well, in order to develop this machine that allows you to increase, your crops production or something like that, you need savings that will pay for your for the time you need to be alive, in order to develop this machine. And in the end, you will increase production, and therefore you will benefit everyone else, because then the price of bread will dramatically, sink, and in the end, the consumers and the real wages of everyone is going up. And these things I explain in a very, very simple language, and I think that's the key of the success of the book. And it's also the pirate edition is being sold on many streets in Latin America, which is the best way of knowing that you have really achieved a book that is having an effect, a mainstream